is Fantasise, and I will be the host for this morning's event. First of all, thank you all for being here, and welcome to the HUGAA World Human Genetics Day. This is the first of its kind, and the hope and prayer is that it will be something that will be picked up on throughout Africa and the world at large. HUGAA is the Human Genetics Awareness Association, founded by Sainabou Laidou and her team. And what they're doing here is the first of its kind in the country, because I don't think we have conversations surrounding genetics in the country. I don't even think it is an understanding of ours. That is why this event is extremely important today. And that's not just today, but it is a continuous conversation that we continue to have after today. Firstly, before we get to the program proper, I would like for everyone to please rise for the national anthem, and then we will start properly. Thanks. Thank you very much. I would like to ask everyone to take a moment's silence to pray in our individual ways. Thank you. Of the Court of Appeal, Her Ladyship, Sainabou Adasise, please make your way to the high table as well. I would like to acknowledge the presence of Honorable Minister of Health, Mr. Amadou Lamin Samate. Thank you, sir, for being here with us. The founder of HUGAA and this incredible initiative, Sainabou Laidou, thank you so much. Dr. Bakary Toure, thank you. And this, some of the names I'm mentioning are also members of a panel discussion that will be held later for mental health, which I think is very key about today. Dr. Jaina Bajalo, Dr. Jara I.S. Balajo, nurse practitioner Romatalai Jalo. These are all people that will be here with us today, and we'll be having a very, very important panel discussion. Now, I don't know much about genetics, but what I understand is how it can affect people. Everyone has a gift and everyone has a calling. That's why we have scientists. But I also like to believe that scientists are very intuitive people, because I don't think it's just intelligence. I think there's a certain level of empathy and intuition that drives your passion. And if it's something I've seen being a Gambian, being born and raised here, is there's a lot of stigma that is around different genetic abilities, for lack of a better word. It carries a lot emotionally, mentally, not only for the person that is affected, but the family as a whole. So if it's a few things I want people to leave with here, is genetics should make us curious. We should want to know more. We should want to learn more, because if we know more, we're able to handle it better. We should want to be enthused about it, because have a better understanding of what it is like, how to help the people affected, or how to help the people that are differently able than us. We should always want to find out whys, the hows, and talk to people. I was having a conversation with Sainable earlier before starting, and I told her I think one of the key points I would like people to carry is understand that help me help you. Zainab was an incredible scientist, the first of her kind in the Gambia. So many things she's accomplished that I'll get to after. But the fact that she's bringing other scientists and other doctors around, and it is ultimately to help us, to help Gambia, to help people, to help Africa and the world at large. That is where the help me help you conversation comes in. And I think that is something we should really carry. So the conversation shouldn't stop today, tomorrow. You see the posters out there, talk about it. You know, as a journalist and as a media personnel, if it's one thing I know, and a marketing agent, if it's one thing I know, is that the quickest way to disseminate information is word of mouth. And Gambians, I think we're fantastic at that. So let us practice that today. Let us do that today. Let the conversation not end today. Let it continue, because we want the World Human Genetics Day, today, 30th of April, to be something that starts today, but it's an annual thing and it goes through West Africa, Africa, and the world at large. Now, I would like to call on the incredible young woman who is the pioneer, who started this, who's bringing this conversation, and who brought this to the Gambia. And I'll briefly read a bit of her. Zainabou Ndour is a pioneering Gambian genomic scientist and global health researcher, recognized for her groundbreaking achievements in the field of genomic medicine and commitments to advancing genetic research and awareness across Africa. She made history as the first African graduate with a Master's of Science in Genomic Medicine from the University of Oxford, where she was also a part of the first ever cohort of the program. In addition, she became the first Gambian and first AFOX, Africa Oxford Initiative Scholar, to be admitted into the MSc Genomic Medicine program, marking a significant milestone for both the Gambia and the African continent. Zainab holds a bachelor's degree in molecular biology and genetics from Eastern Mediterranean University, where she graduated as the top student in her department. Her academic journey reflects a consistent record of excellence and leadership in science. She previously worked as a scientist officer at the Medical Research Council, the Gambia MRC, where she contributed to genomic research, including studies on SARS-CoV-2, sequencing the disease surveillance in the Gambia, COVID-19. Her work has contributed to scientific publication in global health research. Zainabou is the founder and chairperson of Human Rights Genetic Awareness Association, HUGAA, an organization dedicated to raising awareness of genetic diseases, promoting education, and advocating for the destigmatization of genetic conditions in Africa. Through this platform, she actively works to bridge the gap between research, communities, and policy. Please put your hands together for Zainabou Ndour.
Thank you, Fanta, for the lovely introduction. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, sponsors and partners, HUGAA members, scientists, clinicians, students, members of the general public, welcome. Today is a great day here in the Gambia. Today we inaugurate the World Human Genetics Day. We do it here in this room, in this country, in this continent, with the aim of a global impact. This is rooted in our history. As Africans, we are genetically diverse, and this day was supposed to be, and we are glad through the association that we are starting, and hopefully we get to build the momentum that we deserve. We don't want to leave this room with less than we came in with. We want to live with more than we knew. Today is about building the legacy of every single person in this room, that we all got to witness the inauguration of the World Human Genetics Day. And I am very deliberate with using the word world, because we want this to not only be a Gambian thing, not an African thing, we want it to be a global movement. And I want to start with deep gratitude to every single one of you in this room. Thank you for coming. To the HUGAA executive team, thank you for believing in this vision that we have worked together to bring to life. To our partners and sponsors, this day would not have been possible without you. So we thank you. To my family and friends, some of those present here, husband and kids, and to all of you, again, once again, thank you very much. Now, let's move on to talk a little bit about why this day. And I want to take you back to my childhood, to a compound in the Gambia, where there was a child left alone to lie on her own, with no help for her and no help for her parents. But the only explanation that was given for what was there, the one that was possible for the family to give, was that it was because of a spiritual cause, a spiritual possession. And I believe that. I believe that also that was the cause. And these conditions were spoken in lowered voices in closed rooms. But years later, thousands of miles away, in a genetics class, I learned about a condition called spinal muscular atrophy. And at that moment, I felt a sense of guilt but responsibility. And I felt like, okay, that child I saw, it seems like this was it. But how would they know if what I know, I don't go back and tell? Someone else could do it, yes. But at that point in time, I felt a deep sense of responsibility that I need to share what I have learned and everything that I will learn in the future because I have put that on myself. So I am once again glad that you're all here. Going back to that child, from that moment on, we have tried to find a way to bring the awareness of genetics and human genetics to the Gambian population through HUGAA. And because of that child, because of that human genetics lesson, that is why I stand before you here today. And that is why HUGAA exists. So we go back for why World Human Genetics Day? What is human genetics that we're talking about? So when we talk about human genetics, we talk about generations. We talk about inheritance. We talk about things that are passed on from grandparents to your parents to your siblings. And to give you a few examples, it is why you look like your mother but talk like your father. That's why someone tells you, oh, you're walking like a certain member of your family. It is why some families, sickle cell might be in that family, and in other families, there is not. It is why some families have diabetes. The grandparent has diabetes, the mother has diabetes, the sibling has a diabetes. And that is an example of my own family. We have diabetes in my family. And that is just to give you a few examples. So when we talk about DNA, what is DNA? It stands for deoxynucleic acid, and it is in 37 trillion cells in your body. The DNA amounts to about 3 billion letters, or you'd call them chemical letters, A, T, C, and G, 4 of them. And they come together to form you, to form all of us in this room and all of us in this globe. These letters, I would call them, come together to form genes. And these genes form chromosomes. And you inherit 23 chromosomes from your mother, 23 chromosomes from your father, giving you 23 pairs of chromosomes. And that essentially is the instruction manual of each and every person in this room, in your body. It what tells you how you determines how you look. It determines how you function, determines how your kidneys work, it determines your skin color, your hair. Every single thing about you is determined by your genetics, even if it has an interaction with the environment. So that is why it is important to talk about these issues, to talk about genetics, because something that is part of you cannot be separate from you. So you need to know about it. So genetics is not something to shy away from. It is not something to be afraid of. It is something to be enthusiastic about. It is something you want to learn about. It is something that I want every single person in this room, when you leave this room, to tell the message to your families, to your friends, that you learned something today, and it is something exciting, not a burden, not something to run away from, but something to encourage people to learn about. So now, we move on to why this day. And this day is because of HUGA, the Human Genetics Awareness Association. So I will take you through what is HUGA about? What are our objectives? What do we want to do? So HUGA stands for the Human Genetics Awareness Association. And I founded it during my time at Oxford. And it was because I was thinking, at such, you would call it an excellent research institute, how do we bridge that gap between the excellence we're learning and the communities where we come from? But also not only in the community that I come from, but globally. You can start small, let's say Gambian, African, and then globally. How do we build that? So HUGA is that intersection between the research and the community, because we believe this is a very important space that needs to be filled. Because with research, at the end of the day, the goal is to influence human lives. So it only makes sense for humans to be at the top of everything that we do. So HUGA has 5 main objectives. 1, to destigmatize human genetic conditions. And when we say to destigmatize human genetic conditions, going back to examples that Fanta was giving, we want people in our communities to feel welcomed. We don't want to shy away from them. We don't want to say in Wolof, ki jinela, ki domala, ki dafa am rab ko. We don't want to do that. We want to embrace people in our communities. We want them to feel welcome. And that is one of HUGA's main missions, to destigmatize human genetic conditions. Second, to raise awareness. And that is why we're all in this room today, to talk about genetics, to make it feel a part of our conversation, to make it feel normal in these rooms. And that is what is our second objective. Third, to implement genetic testing in the country. In other countries, they have the ability to test for, let's say, sickle cell condition before couples get married. It would be amazing if we can do that here. And it would be amazing if people take it up as well. I want to believe there's some facilities to test for sickle cell condition. So it was something that we want to make normal in our settings. But also the fourth objective, the establishment of a genomic database. We start from the Gambia, yes, but we want it to be African global, but especially African, because we are the most diverse, genetically diverse population on Earth. So it only makes sense for us to be part of the conversation, to be a part of the movement. Because what we don't want is for years to come, when there's cures for genetic condition, when there's treatment plans, for it to not be specific to us. Because genetics is something that is personalized. Although we're all in this room, we're all different. Similar we are genetically. So those are HUGA's main missions. And also the fifth one, and I think one of the most important one, if not the most important one, providing the psychological support, the social support that people that are affected would need and that their families would need. Because currently, I can say for now, on this day, yet there are not many treatments or cures for genetic conditions. So what we want to do now is to provide the support that the individuals would need and hopefully would make them feel better. So going back to today, the 30th of March, 2026, is the inaugural World Human Genetics Day. And I want everybody in this room to remember that, because we want to build the visibility that we need to make this annual. We want to build the visibility we need to make every single country in the world to recognize it, to let people celebrate it, to let people embrace who they are, because our genetics is our foundation. It is the building blocks of our lives, and we need to do that. We want the WHO, we want UNESCO, we want every single health platform or organization to recognize this day, and it starts with every single person in this room. We want to create a movement that has originated from our little Gambia. We next want to build a support system, or systems that we'd call it. So we want to build partnerships. We want to invite sponsorships. We want to build an infrastructure, or build a sort of I would say a predicament that other countries can use, We want to build a template that other countries can use to say, okay, Gambia has done this. We want to do that. And we can because we have seen Gambia do it. We want to do that. So we are the pioneers. We are not being a part of a tradition, we are beginning one in this room. So it is unto all of us to make sure that what we learn today from the scientists, from the clinicians, from the mental health teams, from the associations, we want everyone to be an ambassador of World Human Genetics Day, but also of human genetics at large. We want to build systems. We want genetic testing to be normal. We want to have the integration of genomic databases, and we want African genomics to be a part of the global genomics. And as a researcher, we are quite interested also to advocate for point of care testing. So let's own today, because today is our day. Let's make it our day. Let's make it feel like our day. Let all of us leave this room with more than we came with. Because right here, right now, I believe we are all creating history in this room, and we should all be proud of ourselves. For the students, when I was starting out, I was barely learning about genetics, but you have now the opportunity to know so much and can do so much more. So this is one of the spaces that you can look into, because we need Gambian researchers. We need African researchers, and it starts with you in this room. So I hope with what you learned today, you find it interesting and you fall in love with it, learn more about it, be interested in it. And hopefully in some years to come, we find you as a researcher of the Gambia. To everyone present in this room, my name is Sena Bolaindur. Thank you for joining us today.
And I hope this has given people a glimpse or an understanding of what today is all about and what the future holds. So thank you very much, Zainab. To not waste any more time, because we started a little bit late, I would like to call on our next speaker, who's also the keynote speaker, and just briefly to give you a little bit of a background of who he is. Dr. Amadou Lamine Samate is the Honorable Minister of Health of the Republic of the Gambia, a distinguished medical professional and public health leader. With decades of experience in clinical care, health administration, and medical education, Dr. Samate holds a Bachelor of Medicine and Bachelor of Surgery, a master's degree in health planning and management, and is a fellow of the West African College of Surgeons. He has built an extensive career at the Edward Francis Small Teaching Hospital, where he has served since 2002. Over the years, he rose to the position of Senior Consultant, General Surgeon, and Head of Department of Surgery, demonstrating strong leadership in clinical service delivery. In addition to his clinical work, Dr. Samate has contributed significantly to academia as a senior lecturer in surgery at the University of the Gambia, helping to train and mentor the next generation of healthcare professionals. Dr. Samate has been serving as Minister of Health since 2009, where he has led national efforts to strengthen healthcare delivery, expand public health systems, and improve disease surveillance and response across the country. Under his leadership, the ministry continues to advance reforms aimed at achieving universal health coverage, improving maternal and child health, and enhancing healthcare infrastructure. Please put your hands together for the Honorable Minister of Health.
Thank you very much. I didn't know that you know so much about me.
We can try to summarize it. It's a lot more.
Thank you. But you forgot to say today is my birthday.
Oh, okay.
So Sainabu, today is for me another moment that we wouldn't forget, because this is being launched on my birthday. So at least I remember it every day.
Yes. Happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I first of all start by acknowledging the presence of Professor Tumani Kora. I cannot go ahead without sending salutations to him. This is a scientific forum, and we all know how big an international scientist he is, and a mentor for many of us, most probably including, for Seinabu as well. And he's my very special uncle, very supportive of what we've been doing ever since and what we are still doing. So we are actually very fortunate to have people like him whilst we are doing what we are doing, for their guidance, for their leadership, and for their support. So, Professor Cora, I send my salutations to you. Her Lordship is also here, Justice Senabu Wada, and Senabu Lai. I think today is another special day. We thank you and we extend our salutations to you. And Professor Ogun and all the other members, Dr. Jallo, and all the other members of the High Table. Unfortunately, some of the names have not been able to get them, but we are delighted to be part of this and to acknowledge your presence. The founder and the leadership of the Human Genetics Awareness Association, Senabu and your entire team, distinguished scientists, clinicians, and researchers here present, students, community leaders, and members of the public, and the family of Seinabu, they are all here supporting. And this is a very important day for the entire family and the whole country as a whole. Ladies and gentlemen, it is with profound honor to stand before you today at this extraordinary moment. Today, the Gambia does not merely host a conference. Today, the Gambia makes history. For the first time anywhere in the world, we are inaugurating World Human Genetics Day. A day that asks humanity to pause and reflect on something that unites every single one of us, the code written inside our very cells that makes us who we are. That this inaugural event is taking place here in Banjul, in the Gambia, is not a coincidence. It is a statement. It is a declaration that Africa is not waiting to be included in the conversation. In the conversations that shape the future of medicine, we are stepping forward to lead them. Let me begin by commending the Human Genetics Awareness Association, HUGAA, under the leadership of Mrs. Seinabu Laindu, for their vision, dedication, and leadership in bringing this important initiative to life. The establishment of this day is not only timely, but also forward-looking and reflects a deep commitment to advancing both science and public health in our country and across the African continent. The Human Genetics Awareness Association, HUGAA, was founded right here by Gambian scientists who dare to believe that genetics education and awareness are not luxuries for the wealthy nations, but necessities for every community. HUGAA was born out of a recognition that our people deserve access to science that speaks their language, meets them where they are, and treats them with dignity. I want to publicly commend the founder and chairperson of HUGAA and the entire team of volunteers, partners, and supporters for the passion and persistence that has made today possible. I also wish to acknowledge the distinguished partnership or the distinguished partners who have stood alongside HUGAA in this effort, including the University of Oxford, the African Oxford Initiative, Global Properties, the African Society of Human Genetics, the Human Genome Organization, the Ministry of Health, the Edward Francis Small Teaching Hospital, Queen Mary University of London, and others. Your support is a reminder that meaningful progress is always a collective endeavor. Ladies and gentlemen, what you are witnessing today is not the end of someone's ambition, it is the beginning of a movement. I want to speak plainly because today is a very important gathering we have in this room. This is a special gathering bringing all the scientists and the young people together for the professor and the parent and the children, the clinician and the community member, and the student who has just arrived from school. Human genetics is a study of how traits, conditions, and diseases are passed down through families, through our genes. Our genes are the instructions our bodies use to grow, function, and respond to the world around us. Understanding those instructions help us understand why some people are born with certain conditions, why some families carry higher risk of particular diseases, and how we can intervene earlier, more precisely, and more effectively. I guess we've all had a very good lesson on genetics from Senabu earlier on. But I want to be clear about something. Genetics is not necessarily destiny. Knowing about our genes does not mean our future is written and sealed. Rather, it means that knowledge becomes a tool for better healthcare, earlier diagnosis, and more targeted treatment. Let me give you some examples that are close to home. Sickle cell disease. Many of you know this condition. Many of you have family members, or many of us have family members who live with it. Sickle cell disease is one of the most common inherited blood disorders in sub-Saharan Africa, and the Gambia is no exception. It causes pain, anemia, organ damage, and without proper care, in many cases, it shortens lives. Yet it is entirely a condition of genetics caused by a specific change in a single gene. When families understand how it is inherited, they can make informed decisions. Our healthcare system, understanding the genetics behind it, can screen earlier, counsel families, and provide better care. Genetics is not abstract, genetics saves lives. The same is true for kidney disease. There is growing evidence that in populations of African ancestry, genetic factors play an important role in the development of chronic kidney disease, one of the most significant and underdiagnosed conditions or underdiagnosed causes of illness and death across our continent. There is diabetes. There is also hypertension. There are rare childhood conditions that go undiagnosed for years because we lack the awareness, the tools, or the knowledge in many of the cases, to name them. Genetics sits at the heart of all this. Ladies and gentlemen, understanding genetics is not a privilege of the wealthy. It is a cornerstone for equitable healthcare for all. I want to say something that may surprise many of you, but it is important. Africa is the most genetically diverse continent on earth. The genetic variation present in African populations is greater than in any other region of the world because humanity's oldest roots are African. We are, in the deepest biological sense, the original library of human genetic diversity. And yet, for decades, that library has been largely ignored by global genomic research. The vast majority of genetic studies that have shaped what we know about disease, drug response, and human biology have been conducted almost entirely in populations of European ancestry. African populations have been dramatically underrepresented. This means the benefits of genomic medicine, more accurate diagnosis, tailored treatments, precision interventions have been designed primarily for others and not for us. This is not just a scientific problem. It is a matter of justice, it's a matter of equity, and it must change. The Gambia, through scientists who have pursued their training at institutions across the world and come home or stay connected are already part of the global response to this injustice. Today, we add a new chapter to that story. HUGAA and World Human Genetics Day represent our commitment not just to conducting science, but ensuring that communities understand, own, and benefit from that science. How do we bridge the gap between science and society? Distinguished guests, science that stays in the laboratory does not save lives. Science saves lives when it reaches people, when it is understood, trusted, and acted upon. This is where HUGA's mission is so important. Across our communities, there are still profound misunderstandings about why children are born with certain conditions. There is stigma. There are families who have carried the weight of a diagnosis they could not explain, and communities that have attached blame where there is none. And I've heard of children with genetic conditions being misunderstood, sometimes excluded, sometimes feared, because those around them lack the knowledge to see the truth of what they are facing. We've also seen parents apportioning blame to themselves. We've also had children asking why them. These are all some of the very difficult aspects of genetics and how it affects humanity. That ignorance is not a moral failure of our communities, it is a gap that education can fill. It is precisely the gap that HUGA was created to address, and we sincerely thank HUGA for bridging that gap. Stigma reduction, awareness raising, community engagement, these are not soft activities. They are the foundation upon which any effective public health system must be built. A parent who understands sickle cell inheritance can make informed reproductive choices. A teacher who understands genetic conditions can protect a child from unnecessary shame. A policymaker who understands genomics can make better decisions about how to allocate healthcare resources. Knowledge certainly is power, and it is the responsibility of government to ensure that that power is shared. As the health minister of the Gambia, I want to inform you that the government of the Gambia recognizes that human genetics and genomics represent a critical frontier in healthcare. We are committed to building the kind of health system that does not simply react to disease, but understands it deeply enough to prevent it. That means investing in our health workforce, training clinicians who understand genetic conditions, building the capacity of our laboratories, and ensuring that medical education in this country keeps pace with the advances in science. At this juncture, I think it's very important for me to mention to you that the government of His Excellency, President Adama Barrow, is very highly committed to advancing the health service delivery in this country. The government has started and is implementing gross infrastructural development, increasing access to ensure that health services are provided at the doorsteps of people in the country, building laboratories, training people, training doctors at the postgraduate level to ensure that doctors specialize. I think it is very important for us to inform you that as we speak now, we are training doctors and nurses and other health workers to specialize, to become specialists like myself at the Edward Francis Small Teaching Hospital now. I think this is very critical for us to have the critical mass of scientists who will carry forward these activities that are started today. It also means thinking carefully about ethics. Genetics information is powerful, And like all powerful things, it requires safeguards. Questions about privacy, consent, and who has access to genetic data are not theoretical concerns. They are real and pressing. They are very real and certainly pressing. Any engagement with genomic medicine in the Gambia must be grounded in respect for persons, protection of families, and the principle that our people's genetic information serves our people, not outside interest. It- I can also say this that growing global momentum around the potential of genetic testing and genomic data to transform healthcare, to enable earlier diagnosis, to support newborn screening programs, to personalize treatment. We are watching that space carefully. The Ministry of Health will continue to engage with researchers, with HUGAA, and with international partners to understand what is feasible, what is safe, and what is appropriate for our context. We will not rush, but we will certainly not stand still. To our beloved young people and our national pride, I want to speak for a moment directly to the students and young scientists in this room. You are growing up in a world where the Gambia is increasingly visible on the global scientific stage. Gambians are conducting research that is published in leading international journals. Gambians are pursuing advanced degrees at Oxford, at London, at institutions across Europe and North America and many other parts of the world. And of course, not forgetting Gambia itself. The Gambian scientists who founded HUGAA, or the scientist who founded HUGAA, is herself an example of that, of what is possible. A Gambian woman, a mother, a scholar who decided that her country needed this and built it. She deserves a big round of applause. To our students, study hard, ask questions, pursue science with rigor and integrity, and know that your government sees you and values you. We certainly appreciate, recognize, and value the young people of this country. The investment we make in science education today is investment in the health of our nation tomorrow. And I think it is very important at this juncture for us to let the young people of this country know that the government stands for you, stands by you, and is willing to accompany you to fulfill your dreams. So make sure that you are good at what you do, because we have to focus on what we do. And I will tell you one motivation, what motivated me to become a doctor. One day I visited a patient with my daddy at the Medical Research Council. Then, of course, Professor Cora was very active on the wards doing treatment. Thereafter, I decided, I think this is the field for me. This is what I want to do, to contribute to nation building like Professor Cora and others. So here we are today. So participating in this should be motivation for all of you. So we've seen Senabu and team doing it. That means you can also do it. You've seen me stand here, a local Bakau boy, playing football around the Old Cape Road, sometimes barefoot. And here we are today talking to you. That means you can also become like us or even better than us. So commitment is very important. Focus early in life and taking guidance and mentorship. Inshallah, will get you to where we all want to get to. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe that the Gambia has a distinctive and important role to play in the global genomics landscape. We're a small country, but we have never allowed our size to limit our ambition. We have a strong tradition of community-based research, ethical engagement, and partnership with global institutions. We have populations whose genetic heritage holds answers to questions that the world is still asking. And now we have an organization, HUGAA, that is committed to ensuring those answers are generated with our communities, not merely extracted from them. I look forward to the day when the inaugural World Human Genetics Day held in the Gambia is recognized formally by the international community, by the World Health Organization, by UNESCO, by the United Nations, and other important international organizations, and equally local organizations. That work begins today. Gambia has planted the flag. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we live in a world that is learning slowly and sometimes painfully that good science requires diverse voices, that equitable healthcare requires inclusive research, that the human story cannot be told fully if African populations are written out of it. Today, we write ourselves back in. On behalf of the government of the Gambia and the Ministry of Health of the Gambia, I want to formally express our strong support for the World Human Genetics Day and for the work of HUGAA. We commend this initiative to our development partners, to our regional neighbors, and to the global health community. To everyone who is here today, whether in this hall or joining us online from across the world, thank you for being part of this moment. You are not just attending an event, you are witnessing the beginning of something that really matters. Genetics tells us that we are connected, all of us, in ways that are deeper than borders, deeper than language, deeper than politics. Today in the Gambia, we celebrate that connection, and we commit to building a future where every person on this continent and beyond has access to the knowledge and the care that their genes and their humanity deserve. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Gambia is a small, beautiful country. I must tell you, we are very, very optimistic. We are delighted that this journey has started, and I think it is very important for us to tell you that national development is not government alone, but the people and their government develops a country. Brains like this, Zainab's own, and those of many others in this room, joining hands with government can move Gambia to greater heights. It is our country, it is the country we have, and no one will build it for us. We have to come together, study very hard, become the scientists, become the engineers, become the teachers, because every profession is so crucial to national development, so that we develop this country for ourselves and for the future generations. I thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister, for that very detailed keynote speech. We have our next speaker. Our next speaker is Dr. Gabriel Olabi Ogun. He's a consultant pathologist and academic with extensive experience in laboratory medicine, pathology, and medical education. He currently serves at the Edward Francis Small Teaching Hospital in the Gambia and is also affiliated with the University of the Gambia. Dr. Ogun previously held an academic position as Associate Professor at the University of Ibadan, Nigeria, where he contributed to teaching and research in pathology. He holds a Bachelor's of Medicine and Bachelor of Surgery from the University of Ilorin and completed his specialist training in pathology through the National Postgraduate Medical College of Nigeria, where he obtained a fellowship. His areas of expertise include general pathology disease diagnostics and non-communicable diseases. He has contributed to strengthening laboratory medicine and diagnostic services in both Nigeria and the Gambia. Dr. Ogun is recognized for his commitment to medical education, clinical diagnostics, and advancing pathology services in West Africa. Please put your hands together for Dr. Ogunade.
Thank you so much, MC. You know, when you want to start some things, the computer messes up, and that's what has happened here. But before I start, I want to acknowledge the Honorable Minister who is leaving, Dr. Amadou Lamin Samate, Professor Tumani Kura is also left, my other and very senior colleague in the medical profession. I know, he just left. A Lordship.
He's here, no, Professor Tumani Kura is here.
Yes, yeah, okay, yes, sir. So he's my elder and very senior colleague in the medical profession. And sorry, this computer has decided to distinguish members of the high table, distinguished scientists, members of HUGAA, invited guests, students, members of the press, supporters of HUGAA, sponsors of HUGAA, ladies and gentlemen. I am a teacher and I teach, and I want to share one of the profound influence where genetics play a very key role in what we see today. And one of the key issues is that some 2 years ago, in the people I teach, everybody was saying there was somebody that was abnormal in her behavior, and after some point, they reported her to me. And I told her she should come to my office in the hospital there. And when she came, she gave me, of course, they've told me a lot of things, but I didn't believe it. I always believe that you must listen to that person. And she gave me a long story, and I mixed up what she told me along with what I'm told. And at a point, she told me that her mother was schizophrenic. And that was something that I told her. And this is somebody that will be a doctor. And I told her that she has to take what was wrong with her seriously. And eventually she accepted, started taking medications, and today she's virtually completing her house job. And she's well. And that was because the information she had, she could use it adequately because she was medically inclined. And that doesn't mean she can't function. She's functioning well. And this leads me to my presentation today, which is what you see there. And one thing you must note is that there's no stigma. I mean, stigmatization is a very well-known consequence of genetic disorders. And my presentation today will move across these issues as we go along. So my topic I'm presenting today is crossroads of pathology, genetics in a Gambian health landscape. I'm a pathologist by the way. If some of us that don't know pathologists, we are the ones that diagnose cancers. We diagnose diseases by using a microscope. And also we do what is called postmortems. You know, when people die, we examine the dead for a living. That's what I do. And that's what I've done all my life. Those are my disclosures. So that don't be fearful. So as a pathologist, I spend my days looking down the microscope. That's what I do. And to many, a biopsy, because they remove part of the body, they send it to me. Or we take a part of the body, we put on a slide. And we just see patterns of colors. That's what everybody sees. Because when you project what we use, they just see colors. That's all they see, but we see more than colors. Especially when we diagnose malignancies, which are cancers. To us, it is a script. It's a story written in the language of the DNA, because most diseases have some genetic basis of how they occur. A language that until now has been largely ignored in our public health discourse in the Gambia. We gather here for this meeting because we can no longer afford to be genetically illiterate. Genetics in the sense of it. And for too long, we have always treated the symptoms while ignoring the source code, which is the DNA. We talked about sickle cell disease just now, and we said, oh, we treat the symptoms. But what is the cause of this? Okay? Whether it's a child struggling with sickle cell disease in the ward in Basse, or a young woman diagnosed with aggressive breast cancer in Carnifing, the answers often lie in the hereditary blueprints passed down through generations. I've said it. I'm a pathologist, I diagnose cancers. And most of my talk will be linked to this. Today, we bridge the gap between the laboratory where I work and the community to see what happens. My talk basically will talk about consanguinity. Some of us who don't understand this English. It is when relatives marry. Okay? I'll talk about sickle cell disease. I'll talk about cancer, which is where I am comfortable with. I will make my own suggestions, and I will conclude. Consanguinity, the social context here in the Gambia, is our strength that lies in our kingship. We value extended family above all. You know that in the Gambia. And that's one of the strong links of what I observed when I came to the Gambia. I arrived Gambia 5 years ago, and I think I know the country a little bit. Fairly a little bit. I've traveled extensively in this country. I've gone to Basse. I've gone to every region of this country. I've slept in every region of this country. So I think I know the country a little bit. And it's my work that took me to those places. So when you have a murder case somewhere, the police drag me, they take me there. You have something there, they drag you. Oh, one body is buried there, go and exhume it. And I go around the country. We can't identify this body. We have to use genetics to identify that body. However, we must address the biological tax of consanguinity, marriage between close relatives, first or second cousins. In many of our communities, this practice is favored for preserving family wealth, social stability, and cultural heritage. But we must know that as a pathologist, when we look at this on the social front, I look at it in the biologic reality. I see the recessive side of this tradition because families, we always have our challenges, and in between that challenges, we now add it together and we create a greater challenge. We all carry hidden genetic mutations, genetic alterations that don't affect us as the individual. The parents are normal, they look normal, but when two people who carry just half of the problem, they now give birth to a whole problem, and that is usually in the child. Okay? So the probability that they carry exact same copies when people marry closely is where the problem lies. I'm not mentioning anybody, but I'm describing this because of what I see. I see it because I'm a pathologist. I see the consequences. My students know I teach them in the class, and I always tell them the truth. It's only the truth that sets people free, and you must understand that. If you don't know the truth, you cannot be free. When these two identical glitches, I've told you earlier, meet in a child, the result is autosomal recessive disorder. I'm using some medical terms now, but it is that you inherit, as the chair of HUGAA said, you inherit 23 from your mother, 23 from your father, and you now form a whole human being. So you will take half of the problem from your father, half of the problem from your mother, and you now form it whole in the child. And this manifests with unexplained congenital anomalies. But we are well, nothing. Why this child? The child will just be born blind, deaf, complex metabolic syndromes we cannot even diagnose in our hospitals. And we see it and the children die. Okay? It is because that's what they call gene pooling. When you marry within families, you are pulling poor genes together. You pull the poor genes together, and the outcome is the result of that poor gene pooling. And we see it. I see it. Malignancies. Children develop tumors in both eyes. Once I see a child develop what is called, we call retinoblastoma in both eyes, I know because of the family genes. Because I know that. Then we have, I put a lot of funny names there. Retinoblastoma, which you don't know. Okay, thank you. Cancers, breast cancers, colon cancers. All of this we see here in the Gambia. So don't let anybody fool you that, oh, it's in the West that you see these things. We see it here in the Gambia because I diagnose it day in, day out. And Dr. Jallo knows. He's a surgeon. He sent a lot of samples to me. And we look and we tell him, he knows. And then maybe we'll talk more about it in children as we go along. So we are not here to dismantle the Gambian culture. No, I'm not here to do that. But we are here to safeguard it. Okay? We need premarital genetic counseling. If you are too close to someone, it's advisable, go and look for your boyfriend or girlfriend far away. It might sound funny, but it's the truth. Just as we check suitability in terms of character, which is the physical manifestation, family standing, we must begin to check genetic compatibility, whether we are compatible or not. Genetically, you check the person whether we can relate to ensure that the children that are born with the best possible chance of a healthy life, so that we don't carry burdens that continue to burden us for life. I'll give you two examples. I have two professors of pediatrics that I know. All their children have sickle cell disease, and one even lost all the children. Professor of pediatrics. And one day, we were talking, and he said it's a wasted life. That was the word he used. He has lived a wasted life. So you can imagine a professor saying that, because he said in those days, even doctor, he did not test. Okay? So the burden of sickle cell, I mean, we've talked about it, it's a national genetic burden, and we know it because the S gene came up because nature makes sure we try to protect against malaria, but created another problem. And hemoglobin SS genotype is a source of immense suffering. The suffering has been mentioned, so I won't bother myself going through it. Many families, as you said, as we have even been said today, said that sickle cell symptoms, they attribute it to spiritual attack, to bad luck. And I think this association must lead the charge to newborn screening, as we have been alluded to. If we identify a sickle cell at birth, we can provide hydroxyurea, which is available in this country, prophylactic antibiotics, vaccinations that turn a fatal condition into a manageable chronic illness. But we can even prevent this from happening. I will tell you my own personal story. I'm hemoglobin AS. The first person I wanted to marry was AS. I said no, it was not going to happen. So I'm telling you my own personal story. So I have no shame but to tell you the truth. We didn't marry until I found someone, my current wife, who is a professor of ophthalmology. She was A, and we got married. And you can see, I've used my head. I'm using my own personal story to tell you this. So I'm advocating for something that I have practiced in my own life. I'm hemoglobin AS, my wife is A. And as I told you, the person I was dating the first time was AS. And I said I cannot take, they said we should use faith. I said no, it's not going to happen. So you can see. So we must move from a reactive plan to proactive management. And that was what I did. I was proactive about it. Okay? So I hope the story is sinking and you disseminate it in your neighborhoods, in your families, in your society, in your classrooms, and the places where you have influence. Everybody here has that influence. So I will talk to you. So I've mentioned that. That is just part. So I will tell you my own area where my strength lies, which is the cancer diagnosis. We are witnessing an epidemiological shift. We have taken up Western lifestyle. And when you take up a Western lifestyle, you acquire the diseases of the West. Okay? Cancers are diseases of the West. So if you go to the West, they have a very high incidence of cancer. We too, we are acquiring because we live it like them. Okay? But unfortunately, we still carry our own problems. So problems of malaria, problems of TB. We now mix it up with the West. You can see they have conquered those ones, but we are still struggling with that. Okay? And you can see, so it's an epidemiological shift. We are transitioning. We are dealing with communicable, and we are now dealing with non-communicable disease. Specifically, cancer incidence is surging, and I see it firsthand. The top cancers in the Gambia today in males is liver cancers, The bleeding in women is cervix. And before you know it, if you look at the highest cancers here, you can see liver is here for men, cervix for female, liver for female also. Those three cancers in male, liver, cervix, and liver cancers are preventable cancers in terms of vaccination, in terms of screening. For women, if you do human papillomavirus vaccination, you can virtually eliminate cervical cancer. If you do hepatitis B vaccination, hepatitis C vaccination, you can eliminate liver cancers. Make sure our granules, aflatoxin is tested in our granules. I had a very sad story recently that some of the granules that pass aflatoxin screening here, they get to Europe, they use high-falutin screening and we fail those things. So it's an economic problem also. So at home, so you can see what we need to do are broad-based. And that's what we're trying to. So you discover that we are left with the cancers that we have to do genetic testing for. So breast cancer is very, very common. I've diagnosed breast cancers in women that are 22, 23, 24, young women. And it is presumed that when you diagnose cancers in young women, there is a genetic component to it. Some of them might tell you that they have no genetic issue, but it's what you test, you find. It's what you look for, you find. And believe you me, we found at least 3 families that clustering of some of these genes in Banjul. I can tell you for free, and that's the truth. That's what we call triple negative breast cancer. If 2, 3 women, 5 women have breast cancer, they don't have the same disease. They have different diseases. It is when you test, you're able to say this is the disease this woman has. Yes, the rubric is breast cancer, but when you do the genetic and metabolic testing for hormonal testing, for what we call, I don't want to bother us with those things, ARPR, HER2. That's what we call triple negative. When the woman does not have any of those things, they will say it's triple negative. And you can advocate treatment based on the outcome. But here, when you find triple negative, most likely the women tend to have some genetic component. It's not everybody that has it, but many times that's what happens. Those of us that watch films know about Angelina Jolie. She had, her auntie had breast cancer, her mom had breast cancer, and the disease clustered in her family, and she knew that was going to be a problem. So she did the testing for what we call BRCA1, BRCA2, and she was positive. This is an open story. So she did what did she do? She did bilateral breast mastectomy to reduce her risk. Then some months or years later, after recovering from that, she removed her 2 ovaries because she did not want to have breast cancer or ovarian cancer. So it is in public space, so it's not hidden that these things are being discussed. Then there's another thing we found here, I've observed here in the Gambia, based on my experience, that we have what is called microsatellite unstable colon cancer. These are things that runs in families, and we see it. Another thing I've observed in Gambia is also that there's a lot of ulcerative colitis, Crohn's disease in this country. And I've seen patients transform to malignancies here in the Gambia. So things we read in books, things we think is in the West, happens here in the Gambia. Because if you don't look for it, you can't find it. So understanding that these markers allow us to move to precision medicine. Precision means that the treatment you give to patient A is different from patient B. They might have the same disease, but you tailor the therapy based on genetic testing to each and every individual. Okay? And where we treat patients based on their specific genetic makeup rather than one size fits all, which we have been doing for years. And that's why our patients don't survive. But if you use one size fits all, they cannot survive because you are not hitting what the issue is. Let me tell you something. I've had patients who've had breast cancer for 15 years and they are cured because you use precision medicine for them. And that's the truth. So Africans don't get represented in drug clinical trials. You know, if you go to the West, I do some You know, I've trained in the West and I know what they do now. They use a lot of molecular treatment. They use specific drugs for specific mutations, specific changes. Africans don't feature on those trials. Hardly ever do we find ourselves here. And that is why we have to tell our own stories. I always state we must tell our own story. That's why one chemotherapy drug for a patient in London might not work for a patient in Banjul. So discover that when you go to the West to treat malignancy, sometimes you don't look at the differences in pattern of behavior, pattern of malignancies, because of the experience we have locally is different from what they have in the Western world. And that's the truth. It is because the reason why the difference is that we're genetically diverse from the West. And African DNA is one of the most diverse in the world. Yet, most global medical research is based on Western genomes, and our genomes are not represented. I know the story is changing. Some countries have tried to get on those platforms, but we still need to get the genomes of all Africans onto it. And that's the truth. I know I'm a Yoruba man. Some of the Human Genome Projects was from my country, the Yoruba race. But that doesn't speak to the Madinka, to the Wolof, no. So we need to make sure we're able to collaborate, have friends in the West that can put some of our genes into these things. We need precision medicine tailored for the African genetic profile. We need tumor profiling, looking at the genetics of cancer itself, to choose the right magic bullet treatment, provided we have enough of our tumor tissue to be tested. So going ahead, I'm closing now. Education is necessary. I've done some education here. I've given you my own example. Genetic literacy must be taught to our madrasas, to our schools, to audience like this, via the radio, via TV, to prevent basic genetic diseases like sickle cell. I've prevented that, and I'm already telling my own children. I will tell you again, we are lucky. 2 of my children are AA, 1 is AS. So I've told him what I did, and I've informed him. Community literacy, simplify genetic consent to local languages. You are the ones that will do this. Premarital counseling. I did my own premarital counseling for myself. Okay? And I prevented it. Then, for those of us who are scientists, my message to you, biobanking. We must biobank our tumors. We start collecting and storing again. It might be the tumor that we do in Banjul. Just keep them aside. Somebody will come, extract the DNA, and go and work with it. Provided there is a strong legislation, laws to prevent genetic discrimination against people, and to make sure people don't misuse our DNAs. I remember after COVID, some people came to me. I work in Nigeria. I have a lab in Nigeria, which I serve as the director of a molecular lab. And they came from me from the West. They said, because during that COVID, we had a lot of samples. They said they want to buy the blood. That was the word they used. I looked at them. I said I will get back to them. Till today, I didn't get back to them. And I told my staff, we will destroy all these things. And we destroyed those blood. After about COVID, after about 5 years, we destroyed them. Because the ones that were done, that were needed, we gave it to people who we knew in Nigeria to do the molecular testing. And I don't know, if you are not strong, that will have happened. So we need legislation to make sure also how our genetic material is handled here in the Gambia. I know for free that some of our genetic material here in the Gambia lies in some labs in the West. I know that. But it's because the legislation is loose at present. Okay? So, in concluding, we need this forum, like this Human Genetic Association, to continue to enlighten the public and making sure we get to the root of the matter. And I really want to thank you for inviting me to speak, and thank you very much for listening. I'm very grateful for this opportunity.
Gabriel Olabiye Ogun, thank you for that very, very detailed speech and detailed explanation on pathology and diseases and genetics, and especially on cancer and sickle cell, because as you said, these are very unfortunately common here. So thank you very much. And something that also is very important to know is in the way Dr. Ogun explained everything, one of the main things here, I believe, is his message is to try to know, don't be afraid, embrace, and be curious. I think ultimately that is the general message for everyone here, is him giving you explanations on sickle cell, on cancer, on cervix. So, when I was 19, I did a movie on cervical cancer. That's when I learned about it, and that's what this is all about. It's for us to be curious, to know. I had never heard of it prior to that, but the moment they told me, "Oh, we're doing this," it's about a girl. She lived a certain lifestyle, and for me, that opened up my mind to what cancer was. Because I was like, I'm 19. What do I have to worry about cancer for? But like he said, he's diagnosed young girls as early as 20 something, in their early 20s. And I think that ultimately what the message here is embrace it, be curious, find out, because when you know, you're able to avoid, or you're able to get ahead of it. Thanks. Thank you very much, Dr. Logan. I'd like to call on some of our panelists who are now with us, Dr. Bakari Ture, Dr. Jenna Bajalo, Dr. Jara Ayes Balajo, to please make your way to the high table. Quickly, before we call on our next speaker, I would like to thank our sponsors, most importantly, Africa Oxford Initiative from the University of Oxford. We'd like to thank Global Properties as well, the partners Remembering Ruel Foundation, the Tanzania Human Genetics Organization, the Edward Francis Small Teaching Hospital. This event is fully endorsed by the African Society of Human Genetics. So thank you very much to our sponsors, to our partners. Without you, this event would not have been successful, so thank you. I would like to call on our next speaker with a brief introduction, who's Dr. Jallo. Dr. Jallo currently serves as the Deputy Chief Medical Director at Edward Francis Small Teaching Hospital, the country's main tertiary and teaching hospital. In this role, he plays a key part in overseeing clinical services, hospital administration, and the continuous improvement of healthcare delivery at the national level. A consultant pediatric surgeon, Dr. Jallo has led critical areas of surgical care and previously headed the surgical department, contributing significantly to advancing specialized healthcare services in the Gambia. And just lastly, Dr. Jallo has also been instrumental in introducing innovative healthcare solutions, including digital tools for managing conditions such as hemophilia, reflecting his commitment to modernizing patient care and improving outcomes. Thank you very much, Dr. Chenna S. Jallo, and thank you for being here.
Thank you for that presentation of myself. I only hope it's reflective. This is a very big milestone in genetics in this country. So all of us will be proud that we are part of this activity. And before going further, I think it's good at this juncture, we probably, I'm taking that from the MC, to give Jenna Balandur a very big round of applause for pioneering this activity. Sorry. Yes. I would stand on the existing protocols. Time is not on our side. While he go on with this. So my presentations will be in a bit twofold. I'll give a speech, and then I've projected something that I would show. So I am coming from a different perspective. They say genetic is wide, is diverse, but the outcome of genetic, especially inheritance, is an illness. And then you have it medical illness and surgical illness. So I'm sure at this point in time, at the back of our mind, all of us probably will be wondering what do we have to offer in the country, in our institution. By the way, as said earlier, I'm from Edward Francis Small Teaching Hospital. It's the only tertiary postgraduate medical referral hospital in the Gambia. Every morning at Edward Francis Small Teaching Hospital, I walk through wards filled with most resilient people I know. They are our children. And in the Gambia, as in West Africa, our pediatric populations is our greatest asset. I'm sure many would agree with me, yet they carry a disproportionate burden of our surgical illnesses. So when we are talking about genetics, and then we've been hearing all these high-flating things, at the back of our mind, behind the scene, let us know the outcome will be reflected, and that we are the ones who will face some of those things. And I'm happy Prof. Ogun is here because he's one of the big supports I have or we have as far as genetic conditions are concerned. And that he spoke about cancer. And then the cancer that was discussed here, you can see is the other side. We talked about liver, we talked about breast, we talked about colorectal, and that's the adult side. And then while the global health community has made a stride in combating infectious disease, the unborn child of global health, that's the congenital anomalies, has long remained in the shadow. Most of the congenital anomalies are as a result of genetic problems which are inherited. But environment also play a very big role. Usually it's multifactorial, but genetic has a very big role to play. Today, I want to discuss the genetic and the structural defect that defines our clinical landscape in the Gambia, the systemic challenge we face in Banjul, and the path toward a future where a child placed above does not determine their rights to survive a treatable condition. The landscape of genetic and congenital defects, which we see in our children, is a reality. And then I think everything is stitching up in that we are seeing the advocacy group, we are seeing the other part of the scientists coming up, looking into it, and then we are seeing the clinical part, and then how much we are ready to solve some of the problems that we face clinically. In low West African countries, the profile of pediatric surgery is unique. We see a high prevalence of conditions that are both genetically influenced and exacerbated by environmental factors. Congenital anomalies, by and large, genetics has a very big role to play. This accounts for almost nearly 60% of our surgical admissions. So this makes it very paramount and important and give us a role in this activity and in this awareness and integration. Neural tube defect. We've seen our babies are born some with a defect on the back and the weakness of the legs. And then we know conditions like that, spina bifida, hydrocephalus, they remain tragically common in our regions. These are often linked to nutritional deficiency like folic acid intake, specifically which is supposed to be in the maternal diet. Of course, gastrointestinal defects too we face, conditions which you will see. I will quickly highlight them. I'll quickly highlight them so that by the time we leave this room, it will be clear in the back of our mind that genetics is not only seen as inherited, but the outcome as here. But the good news is there is help. And your Only Teaching Hospital has been working very hard to make sure that support remains. We spoke about abdominal wall defect, which I will also show we call them omphalocele. They have a lot of syndromes that they are associated with. And then a lot of genetic association from Beckwith-Weatherman syndrome to a lot of others. But the outcome we see is the defect in the child, which there is solution in our hospital. Then sickle cell disease, of course. When we say sickle cell disease awareness, Prof. Ogun has said here very clearly that it's preventable. But we know consanguinity is something that is very much inherent and deep in our culture. So while we are doing that, we should also be ready for the alternative. We cannot discuss genetics without talking about sickle cell disease. But it is not just only a medical condition, it is also a surgical condition. So when you hear sickle cell disease, you say, why is this surgeon talking about sickle cell disease? Our patients face unique perioperative risk because then you should know what you're dealing with. From what we call splenic sequestration to acute chest syndrome, requiring a level of hematological support that tests our limited resources. Of course, some of them may end up having hypersplenism, which will warrant for us to come and yank the spleen. That will help to stabilize the health of that patient. So, meaning that we really have to be ready to be within the whole framework of management. But then we face 3 delays in managing our patients. I had said 60% of them are congenital anomalies, and then what goes into that bag, genetics plays a very big role. But these patients, there are 3 delays. We have delays in seeking care. That also goes into advocacy. Of course, we know poverty and lack of awareness often leads to families seeking care from traditional healers first. By the time they come to us, it's late. Then the second delay is reaching care. If a child is born at birth with a condition that's the outcome of a genetic problem before the patient reaches us, that may take days. And then, of course, the other delay is when they reach our hospital. There is work going on in that. When they reach our doorsteps, really navigate through our health system. That creates a very big hurdle. Of course, there are some limitations we have, from neonatal ventilators to anesthesiologists, pediatric anesthesiologists, constant grappling with some vital consumables, but these are our challenges. Despite these challenges, we are not standing still at Edward Francis Moore Teaching Hospital. We are moving from a model of survival to one of a systemic excellence. And I'm sure if any of you are opportune to visit us within this current time, you will know some of those things are happening. To manage cancer or diseases that are as a result of genetics need multidisciplinary approach. And then the Prof. Ogun had talked about that too. Resource appropriation is very important. In the Gambia, for example, before we just had a chronic kidney disease presentation. And then the scientists are trying to find the markers that will help us be able to diagnose it early. But a lot of things goes into it. And then here too, we have a lot of patients who have kidney disease and they're on dialysis. Of course, we may say in our hospital, we may have a top-notch water treatment plant dialysis machine with 40 machines calibrated, but of course, always grappled with vital consumables. So meaning that if any patient is here, you have access to dialysis, but the struggle continues. And then we have to be innovative in what we do. For example, when a child develops acute kidney injury, for example, the acute that happened before, or a child needs a dialysis, we need to pass a peritoneal catheter. Some of those things is difficult to come by. So at EFSDH, we came up with some innovations to have a form of catheter to be able to do their peritoneal dialysis. So all those things goes to show that we need clinical ingenuity that can bridge the gap of technology in a scarce environment like ours. Of course, training is ongoing. The minister has said that. Surgeons, physicians, pediatricians have been trained in our hospital. But then at this juncture, I want to just take you through to some of the little conditions that we see that have some genetic predilection, and then some of the pictures, some people may find it a bit uncomfortable. Yes, this is what we do as clinicians. We've seen the laboratory scientist was here. He said what he do, and he went length and breadth, visited length and breadth of this country. He looked into microscopes. As clinicians, this is what we do. And then as surgeons too, all these genetic problems that will be discussed here, that will be hearing over the media, and finally, if they have surgical condition, know that there is help around. So I think that should be comforting to all of us, that something is being done. So these are conditions. This is as a result of genetics. This is the abdomen. There's a defect in the abdomen. This one, the child is not having anus. A lot of multifactorial thing, but there's a lot of syndromes that are associated with this. And then the other one, the food pipe is not connected. The other ones, and then all the intestines are outside. The last part is the solutions after solving it. And then now the most challenging part is when you have a child born who looks like a male or look like a female. Yes. 7 minutes. I think I will have a lot of time left then. Okay. Yes. So I'm not far from the end. Thank you. So when we look at this, these are realities. And then when we are discussing about genetics, about human problems, we have to be real. We have to be blunt, honest. Some babies are born who may look like a male, may look like a female, and it's difficult to know which sex you put them on. And then I can tell you, when I came back 4 years here, I met a 21-year-old who was like that, who looked for support, help, ran all corners, could not. And then right now we have a couple of patients with us. Now, for you to know the sex of this patient, your genetic has to come in. But the most important part of this problem is to provide a solution. And then the solution should be timely, because the problem on the family usually is very heavy. And then I can tell you, now when we have these conditions, we are not only able to support, but we are able to even work with the gender that the family, the patients, that the whole theme at the end agree on. And then the outcomes are very good. So I am telling you that when we are discussing genetics, when we are talking about awareness, nobody should be scared. We should all be very open about the thing. Even knowing your genotype as a sickle cell patient, you know, then you have more help, because then not only you have medical help, like what Prof. Ogun said, but also you have help as a surgical aspect. In our hemophilia patients, Now, when you have hemophilia, you come to our hospital, which is a genetic condition that patients bleed when they are not properly taken through. Some can bleed to death. When they now we have support for that surgically. So that tells you if you are a hemophilic patient, you should not hide it. It is something that you should come out because you know that will be help. Because if you don't, the alternative could be more devastating. But then, okay, this part is gone. Yes. Anyway, this is one of my favorite picture. So this is what children always tell us when they come. They tell us to be or not to be. And then we now know they must be. And then you see these babies wondering. And some of those babies would have had those conditions you've seen. And imagine a few years ago, the children who were born here due to some genetic problems, when their food pipe is not connected, we have 100% mortality. But some of those things now are becoming something of the past. So in closing, I am reminded that every child we treat at the Edward Francis Small Teaching Hospital is a treatment to what is possible. When we repair a cleft lip and palate, by the way, we just repaired 14 cleft lip and palate. That's babies who are born with their lips all not connected. 14, just the beginning of this month. Or when we do spinal bifida, our neurosurgeons are fixing spinal bifida as an emergency. They are using microscope to do brain tumors, some of which genetic also has a very big role. We aren't just performing a procedure, but we are restoring a life, a family, and a future. I would want to say the challenges are great, but our resolve is greater. I would want to say that. And then let us not just to save these children, but we should build a healthcare system that is resilient, that is sustained with time. And I'm happy the Minister of Health was here, and then he was able to reassure us on that. And then finally, I would say there is no better time we inaugurating this genetic activity, and there's no better time having HUGAA coming out on board, helping to create awareness, which will all go into making our work easier. And then finally, I would want to say thank you everybody for coming on and participating. I'm very grateful to be part of the event. Thank you.
I've learned a little bit more about genetics in kids. So I feel like you're a doctor I should really have a contact for, because I have a lot of nieces and nephews. So Dr. Diallo, I think from here on out, you'll be my very big friend. Thank you very much for that detailed presentation. We have an 15-minute online presentation by our next speaker, who's none other than Dr. Mohamed Zahid. Dr. Mohamed Zahid is a healthcare professional, a dynamic leader and social entrepreneur from the Gambia dedicated to driving inclusive development and empowering marginalized communities. She is the founder and head of programs at the Remembering Rural Foundation, where she spearheads initiatives to improve healthcare access, inclusive education, and advocacy for children and families affected by disabilities in the West Coast division of the Gambia. In addition to her nonprofit work, Sarah has extensive experience in international project management and leadership. She serves as a country manager and senior sales and customer relations manager at Graduate Scheme Success Limited. In the United Kingdom, where she focuses on gender equality, stakeholders engagement, and professional development, she has also held key operational and managerial roles at Sequest Capital, coordinating logistics for clean cook stove projects and liaising with government and implementing partners. Sarah has advanced her leadership and civic engagement expertise through the Mandela Washington Fellowship at the University of Delaware and holds academic credentials from the University of Bristol and the University of the Gambia. With specialized skills in project design, training, and change management, Her work reflects a commitment to combining operational excellence with social impact, bridging local initiatives with global standards. Please put your hands together for Sarah Gillen, everyone. Sarah, it seems like there's a lot I can learn from you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I will be standing on the existing protocols just to not go over them because I have very, very short time. But I want to congratulate Zainab for such a landmark occasion. And it is the beginning of great, but also very much needed work in our community in the Gambia. So can we please appreciate Zainab once again? Today, I'm not going to be speaking as a scientist. I think we've heard scientists from morning till now. So you'll be hearing from me as a parent of a child that had a genetic condition. And you're looking at my little boy right there. And I'm going to tell you a story of how I almost pleaded insanity. How many of you know what insanity is? Madness, right? Yeah. I was on the journey of trying to find documents to plead that I'm a mad woman. Why? Because I thought that was the only way I could help my son. So let's get to know who Ruel was. So this was Ruel. You are seeing a video of Ruel at 3 months, which is where he was chubby. And then the other video you are seeing is Ruel at 6 months. And you could see he has lost a lot of weight. Can you see that? And Ruel was bubbly, he was happy, he was smiley, he was adorable. He's all the things that you want your child to be. But I always have one question that I like to ask people. When you are planning to be a parent, how many of us are planning for every kind of child? We're always planning for the healthiest baby, the happiest baby, but we're not planning for the children that have genetic conditions. Dr. Ogun was talking about how he found out that he is AS, and because of that, he decided not to marry a woman who's also AS. But what about those of us who have genetic conditions that we are carrying without knowing that we have those traits in us? All right? So whilst we are looking at Ruel, I had a breakdown yesterday trying to do the slides because I told my husband, how was it as a mother? Even though I knew he was sick, I could not see how bad it was. I kept holding on to hope, believing that, we can solve this. I didn't give up. I kept fighting and fighting and fighting. And this is where I'm going to knock the heads of doctors in the Gambia, because you guys gave me a very hard time. It was very, very hard to get attention. From the time Ruel was born, by the time he was 2 months old, I kept asking for help. I kept saying things like, he can't hold his head. But they were like, yen yaay nga xamne da ngeen dem school, da ngeen dee overlap bu ko si problem, da nga am anxiety, waaye dara jotul sa doom. For those who can't speak Wolof, they're basically trying to make me believe that what I was seeing was just anxiety, my anxiety, and that nothing was wrong with my child. So if you're here and you're a parent, do not ever doubt what you are seeing in your child, because you are your child's first advocate. So what did Ruel have? Ruel have the condition that you heard Sinabu mention that she saw in the Gambia years ago. He had something called spinal muscular atrophy. It is extremely rare. And when I say extremely rare, I'm not even sure we have up to 20 diagnosed individuals in the Gambia with this condition. At the time we were going to the hospital, doctors only knew about 5 cases in the Gambia. And SMA affects your muscles. And you might not realize it, but your muscles are way more important than you think. All right? Your muscles are responsible for the fact that you can hold your head on your shoulders, the fact that you can stand, sit, crawl, run, breathe. That's an important one. In the previous video, you can see how much energy Ruel uses to breathe. He takes in a breath, his entire body goes up and then goes back down. So breathing, which is what many of us are doing, in fact, all of us are doing right now with ease, was a struggle for a child with SMA. Another thing that affects children with SMA is because they cannot also hold their neck for SMA1. That means they can't also sit. So you know those milestones that you have on the WHO chart that tells you that your child should sit by this month, crawl by this month, and then you are always looking at the targets and trying to tick. I never got to see so many of those. But guess what? This story is not unique to me. These are things that are happening in the Gambia every single day. Like I said, those 5 cases they know of are the ones they can confirm. But what about the other people? Like Dr. Owen, I have traveled every region in the Gambia, not because of the work I'm doing now, but because of my work in clean cook stores. So I have visited communities to ensure that instead of using wood to cook, they're using more means that are better for the environment, right? And in those times, I saw many, many children, just like Ruel, children who were hidden. We've seen children who are put in cages. We've seen children who are put in a door cage where you put your dog when you're traveling. We've seen children kept in those places. We've seen different things. So if you think the Ruel story is a standalone, it is not. This is the reality in the Gambia. All right, and this is what SMA looks like. We have type 0, which is very unfortunate. Most times people that have SMA 0 are not even born alive. Then you have type 1, which is what Ruel had. Lifespan, very short. You're expected to live no more than 6 months, and Ruel passed at 6 months. And then you have SMA type 2, type 3, and type 4. Just to go into the science a little bit of what Ruel had. Ruel had deletion. He had none, 0 copies on his SMN gene. So you have the SMN gene, and some people have duplication, some people have deletions. Ruel had 0, meaning that he didn't take anything from my husband and myself. Remember, she talked about what you collect? She talked about the fact that you are a mixture of your mom and your dad, right? You take from the bad, take from the good, and you mix. So when Ruel was speaking on his SMN gene, he didn't collect anything. And the most possible explanation to that is that both my husband and I have only 1 copy, right? So we passed our negative copies to Ruel. But they also believe that there might be another case, which is a very rare case, where his situation was just a mutation that happened randomly. The only way we can confirm is if both my husband and I do a test. And let me tell you the cost of this test, £500. So imagine paying £500 to get Ruel's blood analyzed, which we had to send from the Gambia all the way to the UK. And then now they have to ask me to send my own copy, £500, my husband £500. I was like, just to find out. But this is the cost. This is the cost. All right. So you can see this diagram is the same with people that have sickle cell. It's just telling you what are the probabilities of children having SMA. Same science. So the reality in the Gambia, I'm very happy that Dr. Jallo talked about what is available now. But like we all know, many genetic conditions are classified as rare. And on February 28th, we celebrated Rare Disease Day. And Rare Disease Day is when we celebrate all the various rare conditions that our children and adults have. And many of them are cancers, unfortunately. But there's this thing I hear doctors say all the time. They say things like common things happen commonly and rare things happen rarely. But rare things, although they happen rarely, it does not mean that they are insignificant. So I'm sharing Ruel's story all the time so that we can also have awareness of it. And our doctors and our client-facing or patient-facing doctors can be more sensitive and more aware of these existences. The things that we have requested for that are lacking in the Gambia are things that other speakers have mentioned. We do not have the ability to screen our newborn babies. Can you imagine if Ruel was screened the day he was born or the week he was born? His story would have been completely different. Although we do not have the treatments currently in the Gambia, but SMA has gene therapy. Gene therapy is, like I said, a targeted treatment where the gene he's missing is replaced into his system, right? But guess how much that cost? $1.2 million. So even if I sold my entire body parts, I cannot afford to do that. I thought about selling my house, selling the Nyamara lands we have in one corner. How much of what I have can I sell to get $1.2 million? And on top of that, there's still the very small chance that your baby's body will reject this new gene. So this is the reality of SMA. And I don't pray it on anyone. So in the Gambia, our landscape, parents face the blame. And we had a little bit of that in the stories that we had earlier, where parents are responsible to find out their conditions and all of that. But how can parents find out if it's not generally available? So we have to change that. If you want people to do testing, then we have to have the labs to test available and affordable to the community. So we do not have that. And then there is always the question of Halebidemum Jinela. Where is this child from? Or if you're a Christian like I am, you probably hear stories of who sinned. Did somebody sin? Is this the sin of the father or the sin of the mother? And then my own case is even worse because my husband is a pastor. So people will be like, Hannah, of course, sacrifice to have power. So you have all these stories that you hear about situations like this. Huh? And then we start pointing things. Somebody even asked me, did I travel when I was pregnant? Did I eat this when I was pregnant? Did I eat that? You know, we like to have an answer to certain things. And the truth is that you might not have the answers to why SMA was what happened to Ruel as an average person. But today, because you are in this conference, I hope that you understand a little bit more about genetic conditions and you are more open as a person. So after all that I have said, my own story led me to start something called the Remembering Ruel Foundation because I wanted his name to be remembered. I wanted his life to have a meaning, and I want to believe it is having a meaning. From the time we started in 2023, we have helped more than 5,000 young people. Yes. And we have worked with more than 70 families that have children with disabilities and not necessarily SMA. So we do this work by community and school outreaches. We have to raise awareness. One of my biggest concerns as a mother was, hey, who will be Ruel's friend? Will Ruel have a friend? And I know to the average person, that sounds very insignificant. But as a social person, belonging and inclusion is very key to what I do and who I am. So friendship is a very key part of my identity. And then there's the question of, can persons with disabilities have gainful employment? Can they be given the care, the support that they need? So that is why you see career guidance. As part of what she announced, I have been working as a career coach for a very long time. So that is the kind of support we also provide. But unfortunately, it's not restricted. So you guys, fortunately, it's open to everyone. And then we have our flagship program called the Beyond Borders Body Program. Conditions are provided with psychosocial support. I told you that madness that I was planning to plead, it was not going to be a lie, because at that time, I probably was running mad. I had meetings with people in the US, sometimes as late as 2 a.m. because of the time difference. I was just talking to everyone who would help me. And people would tell me, oh, you can't even travel with your child. I say, why? They said, you don't know, people with SMA, they cannot fly. If they fly, they need to go with BiPAP machine so that they can breathe because of the elevation, blah, blah, blah. I was like, oh my God. You cannot even travel to Senegal. You cannot travel to Europe. You cannot go anywhere. So talking to people is what helps me. And this is my takeaway. What needs to change? What do we need to change? After I have spent my time sharing my own story and not hiding my son, what do I want you to take away from this time with me? If you're here and you're a family that has a child that has a genetic condition, seek help. Seek help early. Share your story. Share it. Talk to everybody. Talk to everybody. Because you do not know who will have the answer to what you are going through. And reject stigma. That's a big one. People will try to put the stigma on you. Mom, you have to hide this child. Where are you going with this child? What are you doing with this thing? Wherever you want to go, you want to carry this child. As a family, reject that stigma. I carried my son everywhere. We went everywhere together. Because if you cannot love my child, then you cannot love me. They have a saying like that in Wolof, right? You cannot say you like the chicks and you hate the hen. So you cannot say you like Sarah and you don't like Ruel. You have to accept us. And you as families have to be the one to normalize your children and accept them first before society does. And for policy and systems, oh, this is a big one. I really wish the minister was here. But we really need newborn screening. I can't overemphasize this. I have a sister who lives in the UK. After we got Ruel's diagnosis, they advised us, the genetic clinic said, we have to make sure all family members are tested. So when she got pregnant with her child, because she's in the UK, in utero, while the baby was still inside her stomach, they were able to test, to tell her, oh, thank God, your baby does not have SMA. And I was like, wow, that could have been me. Someone could have tested me once my baby is here. And then there comes the other thing, ethical question. What do you do? Do you terminate? Do you keep? Do you get treatment? Which is another thing we are not talking about today. But just having that screening gives you so much power as a parent. It prepares your mind. So Gambian government, I know the government of President Adam Barrow is doing great work. I just want to commend them and encourage them to do more. If you do not have testing platforms, can we improve our referral structures? Refer me to somewhere that can help me. Organize it for me. Let it not be that I am the one going to search hospitals that can help. Why can't the hospital have that already in place? You know the gaps you have in your system. What about telling me, okay, we cannot help you. There's a hospital in Dakar. This is their email. This is their contact. Reach out. We need that. And for medical professionals, I have a very hard time with them. And I don't like doing a pity party, but I would like to share that during Ruel's last moments, he aspirated and he had a feeding tube because, again, like I said, SMA affects how you even suck and swallow milk. So you see how normal people were breastfeeding their baby for 45 minutes. Max, me, I would do hours I'm breastfeeding, sitting down, breastfeeding, joke of 45, because he can't swallow. And during his last moments, I held my son and I had just finished injecting the milk or just feeding him the milk and then tapping him just to ensure that he's upright. Then I saw that something is not right. I told the nurse, because we were admitted this last day. I told the nurse, I said, "Nurse, come and see my child." The nurse said, "Hey, bed number 2, you're gonna have anxiety." I said, "Nurse, this is less than 10 minutes before my son passed. You don't have anxiety." Before she knows it, my son was now, his eyes were going. She now ran. He. She's not trying to do, what do they call it? CPR. That's the right word. But the baby is small, and then the milk is coming out, then Nabe took the light. She needed to use the suction machine to remove whatever was stuck. And that was it. And I still believe maybe Ruel would have still passed. But imagine if those last moments, the doctor or the nurse was truly there instead of telling me, "You're going to have anxiety." So for medical professionals, listen to parents. Listen to our stories. Understand our ordeals. We know what we are going through. Having a child and watching them suffer every single day is terrible enough. Then going to the hospital and being blamed or being given another condition called anxiety is unreasonable. And we cannot have that. And refer faster, like I've already said, but also recognize early signs. It's not normal for a child at 3 months to not be able to hold their neck. So you cannot tell me it's normal or that I'm just being in a hurry. No. By 3 months in Gambia, what are our children doing? You're not taxi pan. When you start with Jangato. So why are you telling me that I should wait for more months to go without my child holding his neck? So observe early signs, recognize them, and give us the support. Thank you guys so very much. I hope that when you come across another Ruel in your life, you will not be mean. Do you agree? Yeah. You will not be mean, right? Yeah. You will receive them, treat them well, and love them. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you very much, Sarah. Thank you for your bravery. Thank you for bringing Ruel wherever you go. And thank you for introducing us to him. This is what this is about, HUGAA is about, is impact, visionary, understanding. Thank you so much, Sarah, for your bravery, for your love, and for your explanation. And at this juncture, to not waste any more time, because I know a lot of us here are hungry. That gentleman looks like he really needs to eat lunch. So we'll go for a short break, 25 minutes, 30 minutes max, and then we'll be back here. Something Sarah said that I'm looking forward to on the mental health panel discussion is being diagnosed with anxiety. Imagine being a mother and having your intuition and saying things and being told, "Oh, you're just anxious." That I look forward to a conversation like that. So thank you so very much and see you here shortly.